A time in every person's life when they finally realize that the greatest prison is not built from walls, bars, or chains. It is built from thoughts that were never questioned. Most people are not controlled by their circumstances. They are controlled by the reaction their mind creates around those circumstances. Yet the real tragedy is that many never notice it happening. They wake up thinking the same thoughts they thought yesterday, repeating the same beliefs they never chose, following patterns that were handed down by parents, teachers, friends, or painful experiences. Awareness is not about blaming yourself for negative thinking. It is about finally seeing the pattern that has quietly shaped your decisions, your confidence, and your future. You cannot change what you cannot see, and you cannot escape what you do not acknowledge. The first moment of awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. The furniture doesn't disappear, but now you stop tripping over it. Negative thinking rarely arrives with a loud voice. It often enters softly, hidden in phrases such as, "I can't," "it's too late," or "what if everything goes wrong?" At first, you don't even notice these thoughts because they feel familiar. They sound like your own voice, so you trust them. Over time, they become automatic, and anything automatic feels normal. But normal is not always healthy. Awareness demands that you pause long enough to observe your thinking instead of becoming controlled by it. Most people react to life without ever asking, "Why do I feel this way?" or "Where did this belief come from?" The moment you start asking those questions, the spell breaks. The thought loses its authority. Instead of being the victim of your mind, you become the witness of it, and that small shift changes everything. Awareness is powerful because it exposes the truth that thoughts are not permanent facts. They are temporary visitors. A thought can enter your mind without your permission, but it cannot stay without your agreement. Once you recognize this, the fear that once controlled you begins to shrink. You start noticing how many decisions were influenced by insecurity rather than possibility. You begin to realize how many opportunities were avoided because the mind kept repeating old stories of failure. Awareness gives you the courage to interrupt the pattern before it becomes your identity. It allows you to separate who you are from what you think. Without awareness, a person repeats yesterday forever. With awareness, a person gains the power to choose a new tomorrow. The truth is, life does not get better by accident. It gets better by becoming conscious of what is happening inside you. Every transformation begins with recognition. When you become aware of negative thinking, you stop treating it as truth and start treating it as something you can observe, question, and eventually replace. Awareness does not fix everything in an instant, but it opens the door that has been closed for years. And once that door opens, nothing remains the same. The mind is a remarkable machine, but it has one weakness. It believes whatever it hears the most. A person does not think negatively because they are broken or incapable. They think negatively because the mind has been trained, often without intention. Just like the body becomes what you repeatedly eat, the mind becomes what you repeatedly consume. If you feed it fear, it becomes anxious. If you feed it doubt, it becomes hesitant. If you feed it limitations, it stops dreaming long before life tells it to. Most people don't realize that their thinking is not a reflection of truth. It is a reflection of habit. Thoughts that begin as temporary possibilities eventually become permanent beliefs simply because they were repeated often enough. Every belief you carry today once started as a single thought. Maybe someone told you that you weren't smart enough, and you replayed it until it felt real. Maybe life disappointed you once, and you repeated the memory until it became a prediction. The mind does not know the difference between what is repeated because it is meaningful and what is repeated only because it is familiar. It accepts repetition as reality. That is why some people expect failure even when they have the ability to succeed. The mind is following old programming. The problem is not the person, it's the conditioning. Your thoughts may have been shaped by the past, but they do not have to control the future unless you continue feeding them. What you allow into your mind determines what grows inside your life. If you constantly consume negativity from conversations, environments, or the stories you tell yourself, then negative thinking becomes effortless. But the opposite is also true. When you begin feeding your mind with new information, new perspectives, and new possibilities, the old patterns start to weaken. The mind cannot hold on to what is no longer being reinforced. It is impossible to think better while feeding the mind the same things that caused the problem in the first place. Change does not begin with forcing yourself to be positive. It begins by changing what you allow in. You cannot plant seeds of doubt and expect a harvest of confidence. The mind is always learning, whether you are teaching it or not. Every day it waits for instructions. If you do not choose what enters your thinking, the world will choose for you. And the world is not always generous. That is why discipline is necessary. Not just discipline of action, but discipline of attention. What you focus on expands. What you repeat becomes familiar. What becomes familiar eventually feels true. If you want a different life, you must give your mind a different diet. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Because repetition is how the mind rewrites itself. The moment you change what you feed your mind, your thoughts begin to shift. And when your thoughts shift, your entire direction follows. Every person on this planet experiences difficulty. No one escapes disappointment, failure, rejection, or moments where life feels heavier than expected. Yet if challenges alone were responsible for destroying people, then everyone facing the same struggle would break the same way. But that's not what happens. Two people can stand in the same storm. One becomes stronger, the other collapses. The difference is not the situation. The difference is the story the mind creates about the situation. Most people never realize that it's not the event that hurts them the most, but the meaning they attach to it. A setback becomes unbearable when the mind whispers, "This always happens to me," or "This is the end," or "I'm not capable." Suddenly, the weight multiplies, not because the problem grew, but because the story did. Negative thinking survives by turning temporary moments into permanent identities. A failure becomes, "I am a failure." A rejection becomes, "No one will ever choose me." A delay becomes, "It's too late for me." The mind takes a single moment and stretches it across the future. But the truth is, a situation has no power until the story is added. The human mind is so powerful that it can turn something small into something unbearable. It can turn a setback into a lifetime of hesitation. It can turn a mistake into a fear of trying again. But that same mind can also turn a challenge into motivation, a disappointment into wisdom, and a failure into a new beginning if the story is challenged. Challenging the story does not mean pretending everything is perfect. It means refusing to accept the first interpretation the mind offers. The first story is usually built from fear, memory, and emotion, not truth. When something negative happens, the mind reacts automatically, and automatic reactions are rarely empowering. But the moment you pause and ask, "What else could this mean?" the grip begins to loosen. Instead of saying, "This happened because I'm not capable," you can ask, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of thinking, "This is the end," you can ask, "What can begin because of this?" The situation remains the same, but the story shifts. And when the story shifts, the emotional weight changes with it. Sometimes the story we believe didn't even start with us. It was inherited. A parent who lived afraid may have passed their fears to the child. A teacher who underestimated you may have planted doubt that followed you for years. A painful moment from long ago may still be speaking in the present, but the mind does not care where the story came from. It will repeat anything that feels familiar. That is why awareness is not enough. The story must be challenged. You cannot silence negative thinking by avoiding life. You silence it by questioning the narrative that tries to define you. The moment you begin rewriting the meaning, you begin rewriting your future. Life becomes heavier when a person believes everything happening around them is in control of their emotions, their decisions, and their destiny. Negative thinking grows strongest in the space where blame replaces responsibility. When a person says, "I feel this way because of them," or "My life is stuck because of the circumstances," the mind becomes powerless. It waits for life to change before it feels allowed to change. But waiting is the breeding ground of negativity. The longer you wait for someone else to fix what you feel, the deeper the frustration becomes. Responsibility is not about taking the blame for everything. It is about recognizing that your response is always your own. The truth is simple. You cannot control what other people do, but you can control what you become because of it. You cannot choose the weather, the economy, or the timing of life, but you can choose your attitude, your reactions, and the direction you take next. Responsibility is the shift from "Why is this happening to me?" to "What can I do with this?" The moment that shift happens, negative thinking loses its foundation. It feeds on helplessness. It survives when a person believes they have no influence over their life. But responsibility reminds you that every day you are shaping something, either repeating the past or building the future. Most people react without thinking. They let emotions make decisions. They allow fear to control the next step. They respond to disappointment with anger or withdrawal, not because they want to, but because it is automatic. Responsibility breaks that pattern. It teaches you to pause before reacting. It teaches you to choose instead of obeying your emotions. When you take responsibility for your response, the situation may not change immediately, but you change. And that change creates a ripple that eventually transforms the situation itself. Responsibility gives you back the steering wheel that negative thinking quietly took. There is a quiet strength that develops when a person stops blaming and starts owning their choices. You begin to realize that you don't have to wait for motivation to act. You act and motivation follows. You don't have to wait for confidence to begin. Beginning is what builds confidence. Responsibility turns life from something that happens to you into something you are actively shaping. It doesn't mean the journey becomes easy. It means the journey becomes yours. The moment you decide, I am responsible for how I think, how I show up, and what I do next, something powerful awakens inside. Negative thinking cannot survive in a mind that refuses to surrender control. The more responsibility you take, the less space negativity has to grow. Because once you recognize that your response is your power, nothing outside of you can decide your future. Killing negative thinking is not a single moment of inspiration. It is a daily commitment to training the mind the same way an athlete trains the body. Most people want a better life, but they try to change everything at once and become overwhelmed. The truth is, transformation does not happen in grand gestures. It happens in small disciplines repeated consistently. The mind does not become strong because you hoped for it. It becomes strong because you practiced. Every day you are teaching your mind something, whether you realize it or not. If you wake up and immediately focus on what is missing, the mind learns scarcity. If you begin the day replaying yesterday's failures, the mind learns fear. But if you start directing your thoughts with intention, even for a few minutes, the mind begins to shift its identity from survival to possibility. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to think positively all day. That is impossible. It is about interrupting negative thinking before it takes control. The mind will always produce thoughts, but discipline decides which thoughts get to stay. When a negative thought appears, you don't have to argue with it or panic. You can simply choose a different response. You can say, I hear you, but you do not decide my day. That simple moment of choice is where strength is built. Every time you interrupt an old pattern, the pattern weakens. Every time you replace it with something better, a new pathway is formed. The mind learns through repetition, and repetition is the foundation of discipline. Daily discipline can be simple. It can begin with 5 minutes of gratitude instead of scrolling through problems. It can be choosing silence instead of reacting in anger. It can be writing one goal instead of worrying about the whole future. Small doesn't mean insignificant. Small means sustainable. The person who practices a little every day becomes stronger than the person who practices intensely once and then quits. Negative thinking is loud in an undisciplined mind, but it becomes quieter in a mind that trains itself daily. Discipline is not punishment, it is freedom. It is the process of choosing who you want to become instead of remaining who you've been. There will be days when the old thoughts return, days when doubt feels louder than progress, days when your mind tries to convince you that nothing is changing. But those are the days that matter most. Growth is not proven when everything feels easy. Growth is proven when you continue even when nothing feels different. The mind changes slowly at first, then suddenly. One day you will notice that what once triggered you no longer controls you. One day you will realize that the thoughts that used to intimidate you now seem small. That is the reward of discipline, not perfection, but progress. So if you truly want to kill negative thinking, don't wait for the perfect moment. Begin today. Begin with awareness. Begin by changing what you feed your mind. Begin by rewriting the story. Begin by taking responsibility for your response. And then practice the discipline of doing it again tomorrow. Because your future is not shaped by what you occasionally think. It is shaped by what you repeatedly choose. The world may not change overnight, but you can change today. And when you change, everything around you eventually follows. Remember this, your mind is the birthplace of your destiny. Protect it, train it, and guide it. Because the moment your thinking becomes stronger than your doubt, your life no longer happens by accident. Your life begins to happen on purpose.